Over the last month, you may have seen this video resurfacing.
Zionism is a political philosophy which has brought about the state of Israel, the so-called state of Israel. Political philosophy has nothing to do with religion. On the contrary, it seeks to confuse others and let them think that Zionism and Judaism is one and the same. I know that the first Jews in the world were Africans. Not only do I know this, but I inform everyone who has doubts about it to read a book by Sigmund Freud entitled Moses and Monotheism as a beginning. Consequently, I know that Judaism and Zionism are not the same. Zionism had its first organizational expressions in 1897 in Basel, Switzerland, in Europe. Here was a man by the name of Theodor Herzl, H-E-R-Z-L. He was the founder of Zionism. He said that he was going to find the state that God promised the Jews. Listen to this very carefully. This man, Herzl, was an atheist. He believed that there was no God. He said God did not exist. Now, how is it that a man who believes that God does not exist is going to find a state that God promised to his chosen people? Zionism is a satanic movement. It is devil. It is imperialism. It is racist. It has gone and taken the lands of the Palestinian people and through terrorism has driven them out. And through terrorism, it maintains its power. And the United States of America, with over 6 million homeless, sends to Israel billions and billions and billions of dollars everywhere to bomb Palestinian people while homeless people are here and unemployed are here.
That is Kwame Ture, originally Stokely Carmichael, who is a huge African-American political activist for the civil rights movement as well as the Pan-African movement. He was just one of the activists who was super adamant about not conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. I did my research and there's a few things we need to know about the history of Zionism to understand how it evolved today. The founder of Zionism he was talking about in that video is Theodor Herzl. He's not the first person who came up with Zionism, but he is the first to turn it into a nationalist political movement. Born in Hungary in 1860, he was a secular Jewish playwright and journalist. Some people call him atheist, like you saw in the video, because he did not have a Hebrew education, he didn't speak Hebrew or Yiddish, none of that. What you need to know is that this time there was a term being thrown around called the Jewish question or the Jewish problem. Essentially, all the prosecution against Jews throughout the history of Europe can be summed up by the idea that they thought they were the stumbling block to the identity and cohesion of the nations in Europe and enemies within their own country. Now, at this time, there were French Jews, German Jews, British Jews, Jews all around Europe, right? It's said that in 1894, the Dreyfus Affair is what inspired Theodor Herzl to write Der Judenstaat, which means the Jewish state. Quickly, the Dreyfus Affair was when a French officer of Jewish descent was accused of treason and espionage and sentenced to a life in prison, but then later proven innocent. People say watching him get hated on like that just because he was of Jewish descent is what inspired Herzl to come up with this Jewish state as a solution to the Jewish question. They say this book is the birth of political Zionism. In it, he wrote, "No nation on earth has endured such struggles and sufferings as we have. Palestine is our unforgettable historic homeland." He believed the creation of a Jewish state would extinguish anti-Semitism, while other thinkers at the time, like Ze'ev Jabotinsky, saw Zionism as a self-defense against anti-Semitism rather than a cure for it. It gives him the power to organize the first Zionist Congress in 1897 in Basel, Switzerland, as again he said in the video. And this brings people together for the first time looking into creating a Jewish state, okay? Most of these people were secular, by the way. But they weren't always fixed on Palestine. It was their first option because of Judea, but their second option was Argentina, and their third option, offered by the British in 1903, of course, was Uganda. Actually, a lot of people weren't excited about this idea. They were split on it. How can you ask French, German people, etc. to be loyal to two countries? How can you gather Jewish people from around the world in the diaspora where they've created a life and a home for themselves and gather them somewhere where their ancestors lived over 2,000 years ago? I also want to note that he wrote some very agreeable things in his diary, stuff like, "It goes without saying that we shall respectfully tolerate persons of other faiths and protect their property, their honor, and their freedom with the harshest means of coercion. This is another area in which we shall set the entire world a wonderful example. Should there be many such immovable owners in individual areas who would not sell their property to us, we shall simply leave them there and develop our commerce in the direction of other areas which belong to us. We shall respectfully tolerate persons of other faiths. We shall set the entire world a wonderful example." And in a book he wrote later on, he wrote, "It would be immoral if we would exclude anyone, whatever his origin, his descent, or his religion, from participating in our achievements. Our motto must therefore be, now and ever, man, you are my brother." First, they had to be given a land. And that's where they came up with the phrase, "a land without a people for a people without a land." Except all census data dating back centuries will always tell you this was never a land without a people. This is where you see a fundamental misunderstanding in early Zionist political discourse, pretending that Palestinians exist only as individuals or sometimes communities, but never as constituting a people or a nation. This was accompanied by typical arrogance and condescension towards the natives seen in virtually every settler colonial movement. Being from Europe, they were heavily inspired by other settler colonial ideologies. That is the history. Go to part 2 for an excellent synthesis on what Zionism means today.